This is the Dallas Morning News.
It's Wednesday, March 4th. Starting the day off cloudy with a morning shower possible. A thunderstorm will roll into the area this afternoon with the possibility of flooding, downpours, high winds, and hail. There is also a possibility of an isolated tornado. The high will be 81. Those conditions will stick around into the evening with heavy rain, thunderstorm activity, and damaging wind gusts possible. The overnight low will be 65. Here are today's headlines. Texas's bitter big money Senate primary left Republicans fractured Tuesday night as Democrats fought for an edge, all in a showdown that could help decide control of Congress. Senator John Cornyn was leading the GOP field with Attorney General Ken Paxton close behind, but neither secured a majority, setting up a May rematch and weeks of renewed attacks. U.S. Representative Wesley Hunt finished a distant third. Cornyn said late Tuesday that the race comes down to character, telling reporters in Austin, "I refuse to allow a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate like Ken Paxton risk everything we've worked so hard to build." On the Democratic side, State Representative James Talarico of Austin beat U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Dallas after pushing rival strategies for a party shut out of statewide office for more than 3 decades. According to the Associated Press, Talarico secured 53.2% of the votes. Already the most expensive Senate primary in U.S. history, it has topped $125 million in ad spending, and the national parties are watching closely for clues about turnout, messaging, and momentum ahead of the midterms. In other news, hundreds of voters were turned away from Dallas County polls on Tuesday when they arrived at typically universal voting sites, but were rerouted to their assigned polling place due to a switch prompted by the county Republican Party. The GOP's decision to hold a separate primary from Democrats this year required precinct-based voting on Election Day, a change from the countywide voting system in place since 2019 that allowed residents to vote at any center regardless of their address. The switch surprised and frustrated residents who stopped to vote during their workday or between errands only to be redirected elsewhere, an outcome predicted by county officials and voting rights activists who feared the GOP's arrangement would disenfranchise voters. County officials deployed trained navigators to the busiest sites with iPads loaded with voter registrations to help redirect people to their correct polling locations. Still, confusion persisted throughout the day, and the Democratic Party petitioned a judge to extend voting by 2 hours through 9 p.m. After Judge Stacey Williams granted the motion, the Elections Department extended hours for the 279 Democratic locations only. Next up, oil prices settled up on Tuesday as the war with Iran intensified, disrupting energy shipments from the Middle East and stoking fears of a longer conflict. Brent futures settled up $3.66, or up 4.7%, at $81.40 a barrel, its highest settlement since January 2025. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude settled up $3.33, or 4.7%, at $74.56 a barrel, the highest settlement since June. Brent is up 12% since the conflict began on Saturday. Israeli and U.S. forces pounded targets across Iran on Tuesday, prompting Iranian retaliatory strikes around the Gulf as the conflict spread to Lebanon. Iraq, OPEC's number 2 crude producer behind Saudi Arabia, cut production by nearly 1.5 million barrels a day. The cuts could more than double within days as the country runs out of storage space for crude it cannot export due to the crisis. And for more than half a century, the Stoneleigh P has been a watering hole for anyone in Dallas looking for a beer, a burger, or a good time. It survived economic downturns, a devastating fire, the pandemic, and an involuntary relocation. But the confluence of economic pressures bearing down on small businesses is threatening its existence. The scrappy Oak Lawn Dive Bar is the latest paradigm of the challenges stifling the restaurant industry. Record high supply costs, declining sales, and rising rents are pushing many businesses to the brink. A recent survey from the Texas Restaurant Association found that 72% of restaurants experienced an increase in food costs in Q4 of 2025, and also found that 34% of restaurants saw a drop in traffic during the same time frame. Nearly every part of running a bar costs more than it did just a few years ago, said Stoneleigh P. co-owner Tom Garrison. He opened the bar in 1973 on Maple Avenue across from the Stoneleigh Hotel long before that pocket of the city was dubbed Uptown, and long before clusters of glass towers sprung up from the ground around him. Back then, the rent was cheap and the bar stools were full. The same cannot be said today. That tracks with what restaurants around the country are experiencing, according to a new State of the Industry report from the James Beard Foundation. That report found that more than a third of consumers are dining out less than they were a year ago. Thanks for listening. For more on today's stories and the latest breaking news, visit dallasnews.com. Enjoy your day, and I'll be back tomorrow with more from the Dallas Morning News.